I'll be talking about migrant women, specifically their sexual and reproductive health and human rights. To start off, I'm going to give you an overview of what is the problem. So the demographic characteristics of migrants from Central America and Mexico have traditionally been dominated by men who have left their countries for better prospects of economic opportunities in the U.S. However, since the 2000s, there has been a shift as more women and children are crossing the border. The reason for this change is due to political instability, corruption, violence, and poverty that is pervasive in Latin American countries. So as a result, women and children have no choice but to migrate, thus becoming vulnerable refugees of conflict. In addition, without government accountability, women are vulnerable to social inequalities, which are reinforced once they cross the US-Mexico border. So once these women are able to make it at the border, women are beaten, raped, and forced into prostitution or killed. So this just demonstrates some of the hardships that women undergo in order to have a better opportunity. And so according to Amnesty International reports, 6 in 10 migrant women are raped. And migrant women on the border live in the shadows because they are unable to report these abuses and violations because of the fear of being sent back to their countries. So this graph just illustrates the different areas of Central America where women and children are fleeing in order to seek asylum in the US. So these are some relevant human rights laws that have been violated and have failed to protect women's rights. So a few of them from the Universal Declaration of Human Rights, Article 5, where no one should be subjected to torture or cruel, inhumane, or degrading treatment or punishment. Article 9, no one shall be subjected to arbitrary unrest, detention, or exile. Article 13.2, where everyone has the right to freedom of movement and residence. Article 14, everyone has the right to seek and to enjoy in other countries asylum from protection. And other sources that I have outlined here, I'll be talking more about in my paper. So the zero tolerance policy has exacerbated the humanitarian crisis at the US-Mexico border, which has created the displacement of over 500,000 migrants as of 2018, and has denied asylum status to individuals who are fleeing from violence and corruption in their countries. And so as I mentioned, the Northern Triangle countries of Guatemala, Honduras, and El Salvador have the highest levels of violence due to drug, human trafficking, and a heavy militarized presence. And so as a result, gender-based violence is the second leading cause of death for women of reproductive age. The US has also been inflicting more violence and traumatizes these women once they make it and get detained along the border. So this is not only harmful to their emotional and psychological well-being, but it also perpetuates the cycle of violence. So for migrants who do get referred to healthcare facilities, Border Patrol officials remain in exam rooms, violating the patient's rights to privacy regarding their PHI. In addition, sometimes physical restraints are used, and this poses health dangers to patients, specifically pregnant women and those who have other chronic conditions. And so here, the U.S. government's zero tolerance policies and restrictions on granting asylum in conjunction with the added increase in security at the border has aggravated the crisis. The U.S. Constitution states that no individual may be deprived of the right to life without due process of law. The right to life is the paramount right, which must be respected in order to access any other rights. All U.S. policies and practices should aim to ensure protection of life, regardless of migration status. Similarly, in violation of the U.S. asylum law, Customs Border Patrol is preventing asylum seekers from crossing legally at ports of entry and deporting individuals with medical conditions through official ports of entry without having secured safe medical release. So this, again, is problematic, especially for those women who have suffered any instances of rape, and they don't have the care to have STI testing, which can impact their health, especially if they were to become infected with HIV/AIDS. Hello, I'll be talking about migrant women, specifically their sexual and reproductive health and human rights. So some policy recommendations. So at the border, U.S. government must uphold mandatory obligations to relieve imminent danger to women's lives and their safety. The state should investigate injustices occurring, such as abuses, rapes, and unlawful deaths, in order to ensure accountability and provide remedies to survivors. Um, Training for Custom Border Patrol officials on awareness and signs of violence and abuse should also be mandated. It would also encompass training on mental health, first aid, and respecting medical ethics and avoiding excessive force, again, to change the culture and better promote the health and safety of women. Also upholding non-discriminatory access to health services that will include sexual and reproductive health and mental health screenings for these women, and strengthen social support network with human rights groups to support and empower migrant women to report sexual abuse. Some obstacles. Due to the heavy militarization at the border, it inflicts the cycle of fear, which promotes violence. And so oftentimes women do not feel safe to uh, get tested for STIs or report their asylums due to the fear of being deported back. Also, lack of custom border patrol staff that is trained in mental and psychological first aid, as well as EMS, hinders access to timely medical care for these individuals, specifically women who are pregnant or who have experienced any abuse along their journey. Also, the limited health resources and lack of social support networks for migrant women residing in the border cities. Um, Again, due to the stigma and fear of being deported, women might not know about these services that are available. Um, there's also could be pushback from Custom Border Patrol agents due to not wanting to take on additional trainings. Um, Again, the sensitivity of the topic of rape and women's rights might not be accepted by the majority of these agents. And again, the inadequate coordination amongst many different interagency players that are involved um, in the work on detaining migrants, but not uh, making sure that their health and human rights are respected.